I'm Chloe, 28, and my holiday return shattered in seconds. The dark kitchen's dim light showed Grandpa Walter alone with a sad sandwich. That note on the fridge changed everything. Used your money for Noah. Watch him this week, enjoying Orlando. Love, Mom and Dad. My $23,000 college savings were gone. Grandpa Walter's shaky hand touched mine. "They'll regret this, sweetheart." I just smiled. 3 days later, they certainly did. Before I tell you what happened, where are you watching from? Hit subscribe and join me on this wild ride to justice. Taking care of money became my main focus at 16 when Dad lost his job and Mom's part-time store work barely covered food. While my friends shopped for fancy dresses, I stocked shelves at Greenwood Grocer from 5 p.m. to midnight, then delivered newspapers before school. No one made me. I just knew our family needed help. Noah was 11 then, too young to work, but old enough to see the stress. Mom protected him, always saying, "Noah's sensitive. He needs a normal life." So while I learned to save and sacrifice, Noah kept playing baseball and enjoying his gaming. I didn't mind back then. He was just a kid. By 19, I'd saved enough for community college nursing classes while working at a hospital. Each month, I sent $800 to what Mom called my future fund, an account she insisted on handling. "Banks trick young people," she'd warn. "We'll keep it safe until you need it for something important." 4 years of transfers added up to $23,000, money set aside for my nursing school loans after graduation. Grandpa Walter was my rock during those years. Mom's father, a retired engineer with strong hands and endless patience, taught me how to change oil, fix leaky faucets, and stand up for myself. "Backbone before wishbone," he'd say while helping with my homework at his kitchen table. When my parents were busy, their way of saying Dad's poker nights and Mom's wine club, Grandpa's small house in Maplewood became my safe place. Noah's path was very different from mine. At 14, his teachers called about missing homework. At 16, marijuana was found in his backpack. By 18, he'd been to 3 different high schools, each move happening after behavior problems my parents called misunderstandings. Last Christmas, Noah didn't come downstairs until dinner, his eyes red, mumbling answers. Mom always filled his plate first. "He's just finding himself," she'd explain. "College isn't for everyone." Meanwhile, Grandpa Walter's health got worse. His hands started shaking. The doctor said it was early Parkinson's. My parents rarely visited him, even though they lived only 15 minutes away. When I suggested helping him with house changes during my short visits home, Mom changed the subject. "Did I tell you Noah might try community college next fall?" My career grew despite everything. Pediatric nursing fit my organized mind and caring nature. Children liked my calm way, and parents trusted my honest explanations. Last month, I was offered a leadership job at Cityside Children's Hospital, a huge win that almost made me cry during the video interview. 2 Christmases ago, I found Grandpa Walter alone on December 25th, making a turkey sandwich. "Mom said you were invited for dinner," I said, confused after driving straight from the airport to his house. "They called this morning. Noah wasn't feeling well, so they postponed." He shrugged, but I saw the hurt in his casual tone. We drove to my parents' house without calling, finding the family, including a perfectly healthy Noah, watching a Christmas movie. Mom seemed annoyed we showed up, muttering about not enough ham, while Dad awkwardly made space on the couch. That night, as Grandpa and I sat on his porch swing despite the cold December air, he squeezed my hand. "Someday, we'll both stand up for ourselves, Chloe Bug, when it matters most." I nodded, but wondered what that moment would look like. Now, standing in my childhood kitchen, reading that cold note while Grandpa struggled to eat a dry sandwich with shaking hands, I understood completely. The moment had arrived. The note crumpled in my fist as reality hit my calm mind. 4 years of extra shifts, no vacations, and cheap ramen noodles, all gone for Noah's latest problem. My knees buckled, and I slid down the refrigerator until I hit the floor. They've gone too far, I whispered, tears blurring the kitchen lights. That money was for my student loans. I trusted them. Grandpa Walter painfully lowered himself beside me, his old knee popping. His hug felt weaker than I remembered. His once strong body was smaller. Still, his voice had the same quiet strength. Been eating sandwiches since Tuesday, he admitted. Can't manage the stove anymore. Hands shake too much when I try to lift the pans. He showed me his fingers. The tremor was worse than my last visit. Didn't want to bother anyone. Wiping my eyes, I looked at the kitchen with new, critical eyes. Dirty dishes filled the sink. Mail was piled on the counter, including several final notice envelopes. The fridge only had sauces, processed cheese, and an almost empty bread bag. No fresh food, no prepared meals for an old man with worsening movement. "Where's Noah?" I asked, suddenly remembering my supposed job. Grandpa's face tightened. "Haven't seen him since yesterday morning. Came by to borrow $20 and my car. Said he'd be back in a few hours." He checked his watch. That was 30 hours ago. My call to my parents went to voicemail. Neither answered, and their message gave no emergency contact, just, "We're making memories in Orlando. Leave a message." Noah's bedroom offered upsetting clues about his current state. Along with an expensive new gaming system and designer clothes with tags still on, I found prescription bottles with labels torn off, razor blades on his nightstand, and a small digital scale. The basement smelled of marijuana. Empty beer cans were scattered around the couch where he likely spent his time. The doorbell rang, stopping my check of the neglect. Martha Jenkins from next door stood on the porch, worry on her face under her neat gray hair. "Thank goodness you're here, Chloe," she said, hugging me tightly. "I've been worried sick about your grandfather." She lowered her voice. "And that brother of yours has been having some loud parties. 3 nights ago, I saw at least 15 cars parked up and down the street." I called her parents, but they said boys need to let off steam. After Martha left, I called my best friend Olivia, who listened as I cried and told her everything. "You need to check your credit report right away," she advised, her legal background making her voice sharp. "If they got into your student loan money, they might have taken other liberties with your financial information." The credit check showed no more damage, but the bank confirmed my worst fears. Regular withdrawals from my savings account over 6 months, ending with a final transfer 3 days ago that emptied it completely. Each withdrawal was approved by Brenda Smith, my mother, who had shared access to the account since my teenage years. As night fell, Grandpa Walter and I sat at the kitchen table with the only food in the house, peanut butter sandwiches and lukewarm tap water. "How will you manage your loans now?" he asked, worried, deepening the lines around his eyes. I stared at my half-eaten sandwich. "I don't know. The deferment ends in February." "And Noah?" The question hung in the stale air. My irresponsible, troubled brother, helped by parents who'd sacrificed my future to keep him going. Where was he now? What state would he be in when we found him? As if sensing my thoughts, Grandpa Walter covered my hand with his. Despite the tremor, his touch showed certainty. "We'll find him," he promised, "but this time things will be different." I nodded, tiredness and betrayal making a heavy weight in my chest. Tomorrow would bring searching, arguments, and hard choices. Tonight, I needed to make sure Grandpa Walter had a proper meal and his medications. The pills? Where were his pills? A frantic search found no prescription bottles, no pill organizer, just another failure of care in a house full of them. "Noah," Grandpa sighed when I asked, "said he'd pick up my refills yesterday. Never came back with them either." I looked at the clock. 11:42 p.m. Too late for pharmacies, too late for solutions. The weight of responsibility settled on my shoulders as I helped Grandpa Walter to the guest room, his proud independence fighting with his physical limits. "I'm sorry," I whispered as he settled against the pillows. His worn hand patted mine. "Not your burden to carry, Chloe Bug." But as I closed his door and faced the silent, neglected house, I knew differently. It was absolutely my burden now, one I would turn into purpose. Morning sunlight filtered through dusty blinds, showing years of neglect in my childhood home. Cobwebs adorned ceiling corners, water stains marked the living room ceiling. The banister wobbled when I descended the stairs. Physical signs of emotional patterns. Problems ignored until they became crises, then poorly fixed without dealing with the real causes. Grandpa Walter sat at the kitchen table with an old photo album, his coffee untouched. His fingers traced a faded image. My mother as a teenager, frowning beside her happy younger brother, Uncle David. "History repeats," he murmured as I joined him. Brenda always resented David getting special treatment. Now she's doing the same with her own children. The album showed our family's problems. My 5th birthday, Noah, barely a toddler, unwrapping my presents while I watched from the background. My high school graduation, parents next to Noah in the front while I stood slightly apart in my valedictorian gown. Last Christmas, Noah sprawled on the couch surrounded by expensive gifts, while my simple sweater and bookstore gift card sat almost forgotten on the side table. I never wanted to see the pattern, I admitted, looking through memories now seen differently by yesterday's betrayal. I told myself they were protecting him because he struggled more than I did. Grandpa Walter closed the album gently. Protection becomes prison when it stops growth. Noah never learned to be strong because they shielded him from consequences. My phone chimed with a bank message. Scheduled student loan payment due in 30 days. The $23,000 that should have covered nearly half my debt now paid for my parents' tropical vacation and whatever expensive things they'd bought for Noah. My financial safety net was gone. I should have moved that money years ago, I said, feeling the familiar weight of blaming myself. Hindsight's useless without action, Grandpa countered. What matters is what you do now. A careful search of the house showed how much my parents had enabled Noah. His closet had clothes worth thousands, designer brands with tags still on. His room had the newest gaming system, expensive headphones, and a new laptop. Meanwhile, Grandpa Walter's medications were not picked up at the pharmacy, and final notices threatened to cut off utilities. The landline rang sharply, startling us both. Mrs. Chen, the counselor from Noah's former high school, introduced herself calmly. "I'm calling because Noah missed his weekly check-in again. It's part of his diploma program." Her voice showed concern. This is his 3rd absence this month. After telling her I'd handled the situation, I turned to find Grandpa Walter staring at a bank statement. "They took my money too," he said quietly, pushing the paper toward me. "Last year, when they redid the kitchen, said it was a loan. The statement showed a $30,000 withdrawal, nearly half his retirement savings. Did they pay any of it back?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. He shook his head. "Brenda said they'd pay me back monthly, but there was always some emergency with Noah. Eventually, I stopped asking." My anger became cold and focused. This wasn't just about my stolen savings. It was a pattern of using others that had gone on for decades. My parents had used up their own money, helping Noah, then slowly took mine and Grandpa's to keep their broken system going. "Remember when Noah crashed Dad's car at 16? I asked, memories coming back clearly. "They used my college fund to replace it instead of letting him face consequences." Grandpa nodded. "And your senior year, when they borrowed your graduation money to pay for Noah's 3rd time in that wilderness therapy program, which he left after 2 days because Brenda couldn't stand him being upset with her." Grandpa's expression hardened. She was the same with David, couldn't stand disapproval, so she gave him everything, solved all his problems until... He stopped, but I knew the unspoken ending. Until Uncle David died of an overdose at 23. The family warning story told in hushed tones. The tragedy that should have been a lesson, not a pattern to repeat. As morning became afternoon with no sign of Noah, we put together our family's financial puzzle. Beyond my lost savings and Grandpa's loan, we found my parents had mortgaged the house twice, maxed out many credit cards, and taken quick loans with very high interest rates, all to pay for Noah's growing needs and their own inability to face reality. We can't solve this for them, I realized aloud. Any money we give them now will disappear into the same black hole. Grandpa's weathered hand covered mine. Some lessons can only be learned through consequences. The doorbell interrupted our sad accounting. Through the peephole, I recognized Sam Peterson, Noah's friend since middle school, nervously shifting on the porch. Mrs. Smith asked me to feed the fish while they're gone, he explained, clearly surprised to see me. We don't have fish, I almost said, before understanding hit me. Sam was my brother's drug dealer, had been for years, using this obvious excuse. Noah's not here, I said coolly, and he won't be buying anything else from you ever. Sam's calm look dropped instantly. He owes me $800. Your parents said they'd leave it. The pieces fit together with sickening clarity. My parents had taken my last savings partly for their vacation, but also to pay Noah's drug debts, helping his addiction instead of dealing with it. Remember when Noah crashed Dad's car at 16? I asked, memories coming back clearly. They used my college fund to replace it instead of letting him face consequences. Grandpa nodded. And your senior year, when they borrowed your graduation money to pay for Noah's third time in that wilderness therapy program, which he left after 2 days because Brenda couldn't stand him being upset with her. Grandpa's expression hardened. She was the same with David. Couldn't stand disapproval, so she gave him everything, solved all his problems until... He stopped, but I knew the unspoken ending. Until Uncle David died of an overdose at 23. The family warning story told in hushed tones. The tragedy that should have been a lesson, not a pattern to repeat. As morning became afternoon with no sign of Noah, we put together our family's financial puzzle. Beyond my lost savings and Grandpa's loan, we found my parents had mortgaged the house twice, maxed out many credit cards, and taken quick loans with very high interest rates, all to pay for Noah's growing needs and their own inability to face reality. We can't solve this for them, I realized aloud. Any money we give them now will disappear into the same black hole. Grandpa's weathered hand covered mine. Some lessons can only be learned through consequences. The doorbell interrupted our sad accounting. Through the peephole, I recognized Sam Peterson, Noah's friend since middle school, nervously shifting on the porch. Mrs. Smith asked me to feed the fish while they're gone, he explained, clearly surprised to see me. We don't have fish, I almost said, before understanding hit me. Sam was my brother's drug dealer, had been for years, using this obvious excuse. Noah's not here, I said coolly, and he won't be buying anything else from you ever. Sam's calm look dropped instantly. He owes me $800. Your parents said they'd leave it. The pieces fit together with sickening clarity. My parents had taken my last savings partly for their vacation, but also to pay Noah's drug debts, helping his addiction instead of dealing with it. After sending Sam away with a strong warning about trespassing, I returned to find Grandpa Walter looking suddenly older, the weight of family failure clear in his slumped shoulders. I helped create this, he admitted, voice barely heard. I gave Brenda everything because her mother died young, overcompensated, never taught her financial responsibility or emotional control. He looked up, eyes wet but determined. But we can end this cycle, Proe, right now. In that moment, with sun shining through dusty windows onto decades of broken family photos, our way forward became clear. This wasn't just about getting back stolen money. It was about breaking harmful patterns that threatened to claim another generation. Noah needed help, not more enabling. My parents needed boundaries, not rescues. Grandpa needed care, not neglect. And I needed to stand firm instead of giving in. Where do we start? I asked. Grandpa Walter straightened, determination replacing sadness. By finding Noah. Then we change everything. Locating my brother began with checking online. His Instagram showed posts from last night with location tags, a house party in the old Oakwood property on Lakeview Drive. Photos showed Noah with glassy eyes surrounded by equally drunk strangers, flashing new Vans sneakers and a designer watch I recognized from a shopping channel Mom often watched. Those cost at least $300, Grandpa muttered, pointing at the shoes. And the watch is nearly $2,000, I added, recognizing it from Mom's wish list. My brother had literally been walking around in my stolen savings. We made a list of Noah's usual spots: the skate park behind the community center, Riverbend Mall's food court, the abandoned train depot where local kids smoked and drank. After a quick breakfast for Grandpa Walter and a stop at the pharmacy for his overdue medications, our search began. The skate park had nothing but empty energy drink cans and teenagers who ran when my car came near. The mall security guard recognized Noah's photo but hadn't seen him in days. 3 coffee shops and 2 record stores later, we found Jake Adams, Noah's childhood friend, who had managed to stay somewhat on track despite their friendship. "He's been staying at Tyler Green's place," Jake revealed unwillingly, looking around as if worried about being overheard. "His parents are in Europe for a month. It's basically been non-stop partying there." Tyler Green lived in Pine Ridge Estates, the rich neighborhood across town where large homes sat on perfect lawns. His parents, successful real estate developers, traveled often, leaving their son with little supervision and plenty of money. The greenhouse looked calm: a perfect white house, beautiful landscaping, luxury cars in the circular driveway. Only the overflowing recycling bin filled with liquor bottles and beer cans hinted at the activities inside. When no one answered the bell, I tried the door. Unlocked. The inside was a sharp contrast to the orderly outside. Furniture was messy, food containers were scattered everywhere, the air thick with marijuana smoke and old alcohol. In the living room, 3 unconscious figures lay on leather couches, not noticing our entrance. Noah wasn't among them. We found my brother upstairs in a guest bathroom, bent over the toilet. Tyler sat nearby on the edge of the bathtub, looking only a little more aware. "Chloe." Noah squinted up at me, face pale and sweaty, eyes struggling to focus. "What are you doing here?" "Taking you home," I answered, looking at the prescription bottles on the counter. Oxycodone, Xanax, Adderall, none prescribed to Noah. Tyler stood unsteadily. "He's fine, just had a rough night." "He's coming with me," I said. My nurse's assessment noting Noah's wide pupils, shallow breathing, and confusion. "No," my brother protested weakly as Grandpa and I guided him downstairs, but he couldn't resist effectively. The drive home passed in tense silence, broken only by Noah's occasional groans from the back seat. At home, I settled him with water, ibuprofen, and plain toast, ignoring his complaints about brightness and noise. Once he'd showered and changed into clean clothes, we met at the kitchen table for the talk I'd practiced in my head all morning. "Where's my car?" Grandpa asked, voice firm despite his tiredness. Noah stared at his untouched toast. "At Tyler's. I think maybe at Riverfront Park. I don't remember." "And my medications? The ones you were supposed to pick up?" A weak shrug. "Forgot." I placed the empty savings account statement before him. "Do you know what this is?" His bloodshot eyes barely focused on the paper. "Mom said she wanted to help me." "I never agreed to give you $23,000, Noah." "You don't understand," he muttered, becoming defensive. "I had debts. People were threatening me." "Because of your choices," I countered, staying calm despite my growing anger. "Choices Mom and Dad keep enabling instead of helping you deal with the actual problem." His face turned red. "What problem? That I'm not perfect like you? That I don't want to spend my life playing by everyone else's rules? The problem is that you're destroying yourself while our parents pay for the destruction," I said evenly. "And now they've spent my student loan money on your drug habit and their vacation." "It's not a habit," he snapped. "I can stop whenever I want." Grandpa Walter, who had been silent, finally spoke. "When's the last time you went 24 hours without something in your system, Noah?" My brother's gaze dropped to the table. His silence answered the question. "You're killing yourself," Grandpa continued gently, "just like David did." Noah flinched at the mention of our uncle, the family warning story. "I'm nothing like him. I have everything under control." "Is that why you owe drug dealers money? Why you're failing your GED program? Why you've stolen from people who love you?" My voice cracked despite my efforts to stay calm. "This isn't control, Noah. It's free fall." For a brief moment, weakness replaced defiance in his expression. "I don't know how to stop."
he whispered so quietly I almost missed it. Then, as if regretting this honesty, his walls slammed back into place. Whatever, you've always thought you were better than me anyway. I've never thought that, I said softly. I've only wanted you to be healthy and happy. By your definition, college, career, responsibility, boring adult stuff. By the definition of not being constantly high, in debt, or in danger, I corrected. By the definition of having actual choices instead of being controlled by addiction. Noah stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor.
I'm not having this intervention. You're not my mother. No, I agreed. Because if I were your mother, I would have gotten you help years ago instead of enabling you until you reached this point. He stormed out, slamming the back door with enough force to rattle the windows. Through the kitchen window, I watched him pace the backyard, kicking at dead leaves, gesturing angrily as he argued with himself, or perhaps with the truth I'd presented. Grandpa Walter sighed heavily. Reminds me of Brenda at that age. Couldn't hear anything that went against what she wanted to believe. Will he run? I asked, thinking about our next move. Eventually, Grandpa nodded. But he has nowhere to go. No money, no car, and he knows Tyler's parents return tomorrow. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, Noah slunk back inside, equal parts defiant and defeated. He raided the refrigerator, then slumped at the table with string cheese and stale crackers, the house's meager offerings. So what now? He asked, avoiding eye contact. You're gonna lock me up in some rehab center? Tell Mom and Dad I'm the family disappointment? I studied my brother, really looked at him, perhaps for the first time in years. Beneath the bravado and substance abuse, glimpses of the sensitive, creative child remained. The boy who built elaborate Lego worlds, who cried when we found an injured bird, who drew comic strips about a superhero who could fix broken things. You're not a disappointment, Noah, I said quietly. You're struggling. There's a difference. He picked at the crackers, walls temporarily lowered by hunger and the after effects of whatever substances still lingered in his system. It wasn't supposed to be your money, he admitted finally. Mom said they'd pay you back before you even noticed it was gone. The familiar pattern of excuses, temporary solutions, endless problems, always borrowing from tomorrow to pay for today's issues. And the other times, I asked, my graduation money, college fund, Christmas bonuses? His gaze remained fixed on the table. They always said it was just temporary, that once Dad's business took off, or Mom's promotion came through, or their investment matured. He trailed off, perhaps hearing the hollow excuses for the first time himself. Noah, Grandpa interjected gently, do you want to keep living like this? My brother's calm look cracked. For just a moment, beneath the defensive anger and practiced indifference, raw fear surfaced. I don't know how to live any other way, he whispered. That vulnerable confession, so honest it seemed pulled from somewhere Noah rarely went, created the first true connection between us in years. Not siblings divided by parental favoritism, not responsible sister versus troubled brother, but simply two people acknowledging a painful truth. Before we could explore this opening further, Noah's phone chimed. He checked it without thinking, shoulders tensing at whatever he saw. I need to go, he said, his mask sliding back into place. Just for a couple hours. There's something I need to handle. Your dealer? I guessed, noticing his nervous fidgeting. He avoided my gaze. It's not what you think. Then explain it, I challenged, because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly like what I think. Noah's expression hardened. You don't know anything about my life. I know you're killing yourself, I replied evenly, and I know our parents are funding it. Whatever, he stood, defensive barriers fully restored. I'm going out. You can't stop me. Technically, he was right. At 19, Noah was legally an adult. I couldn't physically stop him or legally commit him without clear evidence he presented an immediate danger. Prevention required his cooperation or at least his presence.
Actually, Grandpa Walter interjected, voice firm despite his weakness, "You're not going anywhere until you return my car and house keys." Noah's posture stiffened. "Or what? You'll call the cops on me? Your own grandson?" "If necessary," Grandpa confirmed without hesitation. "Theft is theft, Noah, even from family." The standoff stretched, tension crackling between my defiant brother and my surprisingly strong grandfather. Finally, Noah broke eye contact, fishing keys from his pocket and tossing them carelessly onto the table. "Happy now? I'm still leaving." "Without transportation or money?" I asked. "To do what exactly?" He glared, but offered no answer. "Stay," I said, softening my approach. "Have dinner with us. Sleep in a real bed. Tomorrow, we'll figure out next steps together." The mention of food, perhaps the reminder of basic comforts, seemed to lessen his immediate resistance. Noah hadn't eaten properly in days based on his thin appearance. "One night," he conceded grudgingly, "but I'm not promising anything else." It wasn't a big breakthrough, just a temporary peace. But as we made sandwiches from the groceries I'd bought that morning, I saw the chance his presence gave us. We needed Noah to help make our plan, not just to protect him, but to make sure our strategy dealt with the full scope of our parents' broken system. The first step towards change had been taken, shaky and unwilling though it was. Whether it would lead to real change or fall back into old patterns remained to be seen. But watching Noah eat his sandwich, I saw a moment of clarity in his eyes, the faintest recognition that his current path led nowhere good. It wasn't much, but it was something, a starting point. After Noah fell into exhausted sleep, his body finally giving in to days of abuse and neglect, Grandpa Walter and I met in the kitchen. Midnight approached as we spread documents across the table: bank statements, property records, medical reports, and hastily scribbled notes. "We need legal advice," I said, reviewing the steady draining of my savings. Grandpa nodded grimly. "The house is still in my name. Never transferred it after your grandmother died, though Brenda's been pushing me for years." This discovery sparked a possible plan. My hand hovered over my phone, calculating time zones. I'm calling Sarah. Sarah Goldstein, my college roommate turned corporate attorney, answered despite the late hour. Her analytical mind quickly understood our situation. "Document everything," she advised. "Bank records, text messages, emails, anything proving they took your money without proper permission. Same for your grandfather's finances." Her voice sharpened. "And Chloe, get power of attorney for your grandfather immediately. If your parents realize you're pushing back, they might try to claim he's incompetent."
After hanging up, I created a shared digital folder, scanning every relevant document with my phone. We photographed the empty refrigerator, the stack of unpaid bills, and Grandpa's unfilled prescriptions, evidence of neglect alongside financial exploitation. The house is worth approximately $350,000, Grandpa calculated, reviewing property assessments. If I sell it, I could pay off the remaining mortgage, settle the outstanding bills, and still have enough for assisted living. "Are you sure?" I asked, knowing how much independence meant to him. His weathered hands trembled slightly as he arranged papers with careful precision. "This house has become a prison, Chloe. I can't maintain it with my condition, and your parents use it as collateral for their poor decisions." Determination firmed his voice. "It's time." We researched assisted living facilities near my Atlanta apartment, identifying 3 with immediate openings and good ratings. The idea of having Grandpa Walter nearby, instead of subjected to my parents' occasional attention, lightened something in my chest. "What about Noah?" I asked, the most complex part of our puzzle. "He needs rehabilitation," Grandpa stated flatly, "not another chance or excuse." While true, making it happen remained difficult. At 19, Noah couldn't be forced into treatment without court action. Any plan required either his cooperation or a worsening condition big enough to justify forced commitment. "I know a place," I said, pulling up the website for Hope Springs Recovery Center. Evidence-based treatment, dual diagnosis support for addiction and mental health issues. I scrolled through testimonials. "It's not punishment, it's actual help, which your parents will never support."
Grandpa noted, but my insurance would cover 60% as his immediate family member, I countered. The rest could come from selling this house. Around 1 a.m., I called Aunt Maria, my father's sister, who had distanced herself from the family years ago after repeated financial demands. Her surprise at hearing from me quickly turned into agreement with our concerns. They did the same to me, she confirmed, borrowed $12,000 for Noah's private school tuition after his second expulsion, promised monthly repayments that never happened. Her voice hardened. When I finally refused another loan, Thomas called me selfish and blocked my number. Maria promised to email documents of her experiences, strengthening our case about the pattern of financial exploitation. She also offered her guest room if needed during the confrontation we knew was coming. "Have you considered a restraining order?" she asked before hanging up. Brenda can become volatile when challenged. The question lingered as I prepared a makeshift bed on the couch. Sleep avoided me, my mind calculating possible situations and counter-strategies. By dawn, I'd outlined a full plan. 1. Secure Grandpa Walter's assets and health immediately. 2. Document all financial abuse for possible legal action. 3. Arrange proper living situations for both Grandpa and Noah. 4. Establish clear boundaries with my parents. 5. Carry out consequences if those boundaries were broken. Morning brought Sarah's promised legal documents via email, power of attorney forms, healthcare proxy designation, and a property transfer agreement that would protect Grandpa's assets from further exploitation. We'd need notarization, but the framework existed. Noah emerged from his room around noon, hollow-eyed but more aware than yesterday. He picked at the breakfast I'd prepared, avoiding conversation until caffeine made him somewhat sociable. "Were Mom and Dad really?" he finally asked, skepticism in his voice. I showed him their Instagram posts. Beachfront cocktails, parasailing trips, spa treatments, all tagged #BeserveAGetaway and #BestParentsEver. "Must be nice," he muttered, something shifting behind his eyes. "Using your money for their vacation while leaving you to deal with me?" This crack in his understanding, this recognition of the problem, provided an opening. "It's a pattern, Noah," I said gently. "They enable your destructive behaviors, then abandon the actual solution to someone else. It's not helping you. It's not even really about you. It's about their need to feel like good parents without doing the difficult parts of parenting," Grandpa explained. "Giving you money and freedom seems loving, but it's actually neglect when what you need is structure and accountability." Noah's defenses visibly wavered. "So what? You want me to just magically get better? Stop everything cold turkey?" "We want you to get proper help," I clarified. "Professional treatment for addiction and underlying issues, not punishment, actual healing." I explained Hope Springs' program, emphasizing its approach to root causes rather than symptoms. Noah listened with surprising attention, asking relevant questions about methods and rules. "I'd lose my phone," he observed, showing both addiction to connectivity and fear of isolation for the first 2 weeks. I confirmed, "Then supervised usage as you progress." He fidgeted with his empty cup. "I can't afford something like that." "I can help with insurance," I said, "and Grandpa is selling this house anyway." "What? Mom and Dad will freak out." "It's my house," Grandpa stated simply, "and it's my decision." The conversation paused as Noah processed this information, the first real consequence of our changing family dynamic. To my surprise, after initial resistance, he seemed almost relieved by the idea of clear action. "Would you really pay for rehab for me?" he asked quietly. After everything, the question showed how completely our parents had ruined our relationship, making us competitors instead of allies. In Noah's mind, my help seemed impossible given his role in emptying my savings. "You're my brother," I said simply. "I want you healthy more than I want that money back." Something crumbled in his expression, the practiced indifference, the defensive posing. For a moment, I saw the vulnerable child beneath the tough exterior. "I don't know if I can do it," he admitted, voice barely heard. "You don't have to decide right now," Grandpa said, "but think about what your current path looks like 5 years from now." The question lingered as we continued with our preparations. I contacted a real estate agent who agreed to assess the house the following day. Sarah connected us with a local notary for the legal documents. Noah alternated between engagement in these discussions and anxious pacing, checking his silent phone and looking longingly toward the door.
By evening, our strategy had become firm. We would secure Grandpa's legal and medical independence first, then proceed with the house sale. Noah would have the option of treatment or independent living without financial support. My parents would be presented with these changes as decisions already made rather than points for discussion. "They'll fight this," Noah warned as we reviewed our timeline, Mom especially. "They can fight all they want," Grandpa replied with unexpected strength, "but they can't stop it." I scheduled a video conference with Sarah for the following morning to finalize details and ensure we'd addressed potential legal challenges. As we prepared for bed, a fragile sense of purpose had replaced yesterday's despair. We weren't just reacting to crisis anymore. We were taking back control. "Will this actually work?" Noah asked as I checked Grandpa's evening medications. "It has to," I answered, meeting his gaze directly, "because we can't continue as we have been." He nodded slowly, perhaps the first time we genuinely agreed in years. The temporary agreement felt important. 3 generations united not by blind family loyalty, but by recognition of necessary change. That night, I slept more soundly despite the uncomfortable couch. Psychological exhaustion finally overcoming anxiety. Tomorrow would bring conflict and challenges, but also the first steps toward healing for all of us. The crash of breaking glass shattered pre-dawn silence. I bolted upright, momentarily confused on the unfamiliar couch, before understanding the sound's meaning. Rushing upstairs, I found Noah's bedroom empty, window open. The bedside lamp lay smashed on the floor, likely knocked over during his quick exit. Grandpa Walter appeared in the hallway, alarmed by the noise. "He's gone." A quick check confirmed our fears. Noah had disappeared along with Grandpa's car keys, the spare set from the kitchen drawer, his medication bottles, and approximately $80 from my purse. "Call the police," Grandpa urged, but I hesitated. "If they arrest him for theft, it could complicate everything," I reasoned, nurse's instincts calculating situations. "Let me try locating him first." I called Noah repeatedly, straight to voicemail. Texts went undelivered, suggesting his phone was off or dead. With growing dread, I contacted Jake, Tyler, and 3 other friends, none of whom had seen him since yesterday. By 8 a.m., my worry overcame legal concerns. I reported Grandpa's car stolen, but specified the driver as a family member in potential medical distress rather than a criminal. The officer documented the silver Toyota's information without promising immediate action, which she clearly viewed as a family dispute. "Call hospitals," Grandpa suggested, giving voice to my unspoken fear. 3 calls yielded nothing, but the 4th, Community Regional Medical Center, confirmed a John Doe matching Noah's description had been brought to their emergency department at 4:17 a.m. The 20-minute drive to Community Regional stretched eternally, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. Grandpa sat silently beside me, his expression shifting between worry and resignation, as though he'd always expected this outcome. Emergency department chaos surrounded us, beeping monitors, hurried medical personnel, moaning patients behind thin curtains. The charge nurse directed us to Bay 3, where we found Noah unconscious, intubated, cardiac monitors beeping in steady rhythm above his pale form. Dr. Lee, an emergency physician with kind eyes and a direct manner, explained the situation clearly. Polysubstance overdose, opioids, benzodiazepines, and alcohol. He was found unresponsive in a park restroom by early morning joggers. Paramedics administered Narcan, which temporarily improved his breathing, but he required intubation upon arrival. My medical knowledge provided understanding my emotions couldn't process. Noah had taken Grandpa's medications, heart medication, anti-anxiety pills, and pain relievers prescribed for his Parkinson's symptoms, along with whatever substances he'd already been using. Prognosis? I managed nurse mode, acting as protective armor. "Cautiously optimistic," Dr. Lee replied. "His liver function is concerning, but he's young and otherwise healthy. We're transferring him to ICU shortly for continued monitoring and ventilator support." After providing insurance information and confirming my status as next of kin, I settled Grandpa Walter in the vinyl waiting room chair, his complexion alarmingly gray beneath fluorescent lights. "This isn't your fault," I assured him, noting his trembling had intensified. "Did you take your morning medications?" He shook his head. "Noah took them all." Another crisis on top of existing ones. I located the hospital pharmacy, explained our situation to the sympathetic pharmacist, and obtained emergency replacements for Grandpa's essential medications. The delay meant his Parkinson's symptoms would worsen temporarily, but preventing heart problems took priority. While waiting for Noah's transfer to ICU, I attempted calling my parents again. Their phones remained off, voicemails full. My final message conveyed unmistakable urgency. "Noah is in intensive care at Community Regional following an overdose. He may not survive. Call immediately." Hours crawled by without response. Grandpa dozed fitfully in the uncomfortable chair while I watched beside Noah's bed, watching mechanical breaths inflate his chest in rhythmic intervention between life and death. By afternoon, my body demanded food despite emotional numbness. In the cafeteria, buying tasteless sandwiches and watery coffee, my phone finally rang. "Chloe." Mom's voice carried the slightly slurred quality of day drinking. Resort noise pulsed in the background. "What's this dramatic message about Noah?" I explained the situation with brutal clarity, detailing his critical condition and the stolen medications. "We'll catch the next flight," she said, seemingly sobered by reality. "Should be home by tomorrow evening." "Tomorrow evening," I repeated in disbelief. "Your son might not survive until tomorrow evening." "There aren't any immediate flights," she defended. "We're doing our best." "Like you did when you stole my savings, when you left Grandpa without food or medications, when you enabled Noah's addiction instead of getting him help?" My voice rose despite the public setting, years of suppressed confrontation finally breaking through. "We'll discuss that when we get home," she avoided. "Just take care of Noah until then." "Like I've been doing his entire life," I responded bitterly, "while you and Dad pretend problems will solve themselves." She hung up without responding, leaving me shaking with rage and helplessness. My sandwich remained untouched as I returned to the ICU, where Dr. Kim, the hospital social worker, waited outside Noah's room. "Miss Miller, I'd like to discuss your brother's situation." Dr. Kim's gentle professionalism broke through my fragile composure. In her small office, surrounded by resource pamphlets and inspirational posters, I finally surrendered to tears. For Noah, for Grandpa, for my stolen savings, for the family that existed only in imagination. "This pattern has continued for years," I explained between sobs. "My parents enable his addiction, clean up small messes without addressing real causes, then disappear when actual work is required." Dr. Kim documented everything: Noah's history, my parents' enabling behaviors, Grandpa Walter's neglect, and the financial exploitation. Her expression remained neutral, but her quick note-taking suggested recognition of reportable issues. "Our state has strong laws against elder financial exploitation," she noted, "and your brother clearly needs supervised medical detox followed by inpatient treatment." "Which my parents will resist," I predicted. "They'll claim he just made a mistake, needs family support, not strangers intervening." "Their permission isn't necessary," Dr. Kim clarified. "Noah's condition meets criteria for involuntary treatment under imminent danger provisions, and I'm required to report suspected elder abuse." This procedural lifeline, external systems engaging where family boundaries failed, provided temporary relief. Professional intervention might accomplish what years of conversation couldn't, disrupting destructive patterns and establishing consequences. By evening, Noah's condition stabilized enough for ventilator removal. He remained unconscious but breathing independently, medical crisis becoming recovery. Grandpa Walter, however, worsened noticeably. Missing multiple medication doses, combined with stress and poor nutrition, showed in increased tremors and confusion. The hospital admitted him for observation, despite limited beds. Recognizing the combined medical and social emergencies, I alternated between their rooms, advocate and caretaker for both, running on vending machine snacks and determination. Near midnight, my father finally called. "This is excessive drama, Chloe," he began without greeting. "Noah's had problems before and pulled through just fine without hospitals and social workers. He's never overdosed on multiple substances before," I countered, "and pulling through isn't the same as getting better." "Your mother's upset about your accusations," he continued, ignoring my point. "We've always done our best for both of you." By stealing my savings, by leaving Grandpa without food or medication, by enabling Noah instead of helping him? "We borrowed your savings," he corrected defensively. "We'll pay it back once this vacation is paid off." The absurdity, prioritizing their vacation repayment over returning stolen money, showed everything wrong with their perspective. "Dad, listen carefully. Noah nearly died today. Grandpa's been admitted for medical complications resulting from neglect. I've involved hospital social services, who are reporting suspected elder abuse. Things are changing with or without your cooperation." His sputtering objections dissolved into background noise as I outlined new boundaries. Noah would enter treatment directly from hospital discharge. Grandpa would move to assisted living near my apartment. Their access to financial information would be permanently removed. "You can't make these decisions," he protested. "I already have," I replied, ending the call as he escalated to threats. Hours later, Noah finally regained consciousness, confused and upset by unfamiliar surroundings. I explained his situation with compassionate directness, watching understanding and shame spread across his features. "Am I in trouble?" he whispered hoarsely, voice damaged from intubation. "With the law? No. With your health and future? Absolutely." I held his gaze steadily. "This isn't sustainable, Noah. You nearly died." His cracked lips trembled. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to stop feeling for a while." "I know," I acknowledged, recognizing the desperation behind his actions. "But this can't continue." For the first time in our adult relationship, Noah didn't argue or avoid. Perhaps closeness to death had removed pretense, or perhaps withdrawal began clearing mental fog. Whatever the cause, he simply nodded, tears tracking silently down hollow cheeks. "What happens now?" he asked. "Treatment," I answered without hesitation. "Real treatment, not another half measure or a temporary solution." "Mom and Dad won't let me." "Mom and Dad don't get to decide anymore," I said firmly. "This is between you and living." His fingers weakly sought mine on top of the hospital blanket, the first voluntary physical contact between us in years. The gesture, so small yet important, communicated what words couldn't: acknowledgement, agreement, surrender to necessary change. By morning, both Noah and Grandpa stabilized medically, though each faced long recovery. I coordinated with Dr. Kim regarding treatment options, insurance coverage, and transitional care, operating on determination despite physical exhaustion. When my phone rang again, I expected more parental resistance. Instead, Jessica Lee, my nursing supervisor from Atlanta, responded to my emergency leave request. "Take whatever time you need," she assured me. "Family medical emergencies qualify for protected leave. Your position will be waiting when you return." This professional kindness, such a sharp contrast to my parents' abandonment of responsibility, triggered unexpected tears. "Thank you," I managed. "Things are complicated here." "Family crises usually are," Jessica replied with knowing kindness. "Remember your own oxygen mask, Chloe. You can't help them if you collapse." Her reminder broke through my adrenaline-fueled functionality. I'd been working continuously for nearly 48 hours, managing multiple medical crises while processing emotional and financial trauma. My body screamed for rest, even as my mind calculated next steps. In Noah's room, I found him awake, watching morning sunlight filter through Venetian blinds. His expression carried something I hadn't seen in years: clarity. I remember now, he said quietly as I checked his IV lines. Taking Grandpa's pills, driving to Riverfront Park, thinking it would just make everything stop hurting for a while. His voice cracked. I didn't mean to die. But you nearly did, I replied gently, and that's why things have to change. He nodded, unexpected tears spilling. I'm scared. Chloe Bug, the childhood nickname not used since he entered rebellious adolescence, cracked something in my professional calm. Beside his bed, still in yesterday's rumpled clothes, I finally gave in to my own exhaustion and fear. Me too, I admitted, but we'll figure it out together. In that sterile hospital room, surrounded by medical equipment and uncertainty, the first fragile foundation of a new relationship formed between us. Not the enabling codependence our parents had modeled, but something potentially healthier. Two adults acknowledging fear while committing to necessary change. Whatever came next, whatever storm awaited when our parents finally arrived, this moment of genuine connection provided something to build upon. Not fixing or enabling, but witnessing and supporting. The difference made all the difference. The distinctive click of designer heels against hospital floor announced my mother's arrival before she appeared. Brenda Smith swept into the ICU waiting area in a resort-wear flowered sundress, straw hat, tan shoulders, oddly festive amid medical crisis. My father, Thomas, followed, always behind her, his golf polo and khaki shorts similarly out of place. Where is he? She demanded without greeting, as though Noah's location was my first failure. Room 427, I answered calmly. And you let this happen? She accused, gesturing vaguely. Left in charge for 3 days and he ends up hospitalized? The unfairness of her blaming, her abandonment recast as my carelessness, ignited carefully held anger. Before I could respond, Grandpa Walter emerged from the elevator using a hospital-issued walker, his discharge paperwork clutched in trembling hands. Brenda, he acknowledged his daughter flatly. Quite a homecoming. My mother's attention pivoted, seeing her father's condition with clear dismay. Daddy, what happened to you? Why are you in a hospital gown? Complications from my medications, he replied evenly. The ones Noah took before overdosing. This is ridiculous, my father interjected. Everyone's overreacting. Noah made a mistake. A mistake that nearly killed him, I interrupted, and exposed years of enabling that's destroying him. Hospital Security Officer Johnson appeared, responding to rising voices. Everything all right here, folks? My mother's public face instantly replaced raw emotion. Sweet smile, calm voice. Just a concerned family, officer. Our son is recovering upstairs. Perhaps this conversation should continue somewhere private, he suggested pointedly. The hospital chapel provided neutral ground, empty at mid-morning on a Wednesday. Its quiet faith symbols watched our family break down beneath stained glass. I positioned myself protectively beside Grandpa Walter, noting his increased tremor and tiredness. You stole my savings, I stated without preamble once the door closed behind us. $23,000 I'd been saving for student loans. Borrowed, my mother corrected reflexively. It was an emergency. Your Orlando vacation was an emergency? She flushed beneath her tan. Noah needed help with some financial situations, and we deserved a break after everything we've dealt with. While leaving your father without food or medication, I continued, while expecting me to manage the crisis you created. He could have called us if there was a problem, my father avoided. Grandpa Walter's voice cut through parental justifications. I did call 6 times. You didn't answer. My mother's expression hardened. This ambush is inappropriate. Noah needs family support, not accusations and drama. Noah needs professional treatment for addiction, I corrected, not another round of enabling that nearly killed him yesterday. He doesn't have addiction, she insisted, the denial basic to her worldview. He's just sensitive like your Uncle David was. He needs understanding, not strangers labeling him. The comparison, using her brother who died from overdose as a reason for enabling Noah's identical path, showed her psychological blindness. History wasn't a warning, but a reason to repeat. Mrs. Smith, Dr. Lee appeared at the chapel door. Your son is asking for you. My mother saw this interruption as an escape, hurrying toward Noah's room with my father trailing behind. The temporary break allowed Grandpa Walter to sink onto a bench, exhaustion clear in his slumped posture. She'll never see it, he murmured. Brenda rebuilds reality rather than facing it. The observation, so insightful despite his physical worsening, captured my mother's basic character. Confrontation wouldn't get past psychological defenses built over decades. Only consequences might eventually communicate what words couldn't. Upstairs, we found Noah awake but quiet, hospital bed slightly raised. My parents flanked him protectively, my mother stroking his hair as though he were still a child, rather than a 19-year-old who nearly died from voluntary substance abuse. The doctor says you can come home tomorrow, she announced triumphantly. We'll take care of everything. Noah's gaze found mine across the room, something unspoken passing between us. To my surprise, he shook his head slightly. I'm not coming home, he stated quietly. My mother's hand froze mid-stroke. What? I'm going to rehab, he continued, voice strengthening. The Hope Springs program Chloe found. I already talked to the admissions coordinator. That's unnecessary, my father dismissed. You made a mistake, learned your lesson, moving forward. I'm an addict, Dad, Noah interrupted, the admission visibly costing him. Have been for years. Pills mostly, but whatever works when those aren't available. His hands twisted nervously in the blanket. I need actual help, not another chance to pretend everything's fine. My mother's expressions cycled rapidly through disbelief, anger, and calculated rethinking. If you really feel that way, we'll find somewhere appropriate, a private facility with... Hope Springs has an opening tomorrow, Noah interjected. They take my insurance with Chloe as guarantor. We're your parents, my mother snapped. We make these decisions. I'm 19, he reminded her. Legally, I decide, and I've decided. The assertion of independence, so foreign to our family's dynamic, momentarily silenced parental objections. Noah, always seen as incapable, had claimed control precisely when they sought to remove it. Grandpa Walter seized the opening. While we're discussing changes, I'm selling the house. What? My father's attention whipped between emerging rebellions. You can't. It's my house, Grandpa stated flatly. I've already contacted Acme Realty. They're listing it next week. Where will you live? My mother demanded, strategy shifting from denial to practical blocking. Sunshine Gardens Assisted Living in Atlanta, he replied, near Chloe's apartment. I've toured it virtually and submitted application paperwork. This is absurd, my father blustered. You're being manipulated, both of you. Chloe's turned you against us because she's jealous of Noah getting attention. The accusation, so wildly disconnected from reality, might have wounded me previously. Now, it merely confirmed the dysfunction I'd recognized too late. Actually, interjected Jessica Lee, my nursing supervisor, who'd arrived unnoticed during the confrontation, I've been documenting concerning behaviors since I arrived. She held up her phone, including accusations against a healthcare worker advocating for vulnerable family members. My mother's public persona instantly re-engaged. Pleasant smile, calm voice. I'm sorry, who are you? Jessica Lee, pediatric nursing supervisor at Cityside Children's Hospital. She introduced herself crisply. I came to support my colleague during a family medical crisis. What I've witnessed raises significant concerns about elder neglect and enabling behaviors. This is a private family matter, my father attempted. Not when it involves potential elder abuse and medical neglect, Jessica countered professionally. As mandatory reporters, healthcare workers are required to document and report such concerns to appropriate authorities. The introduction of external consequences, professional observation beyond family manipulation, visibly destabilized my parents' united front. My mother's practiced charm faltered. My father's blustering authority deflated. Noah seized this momentary advantage. I'm going to Hope Springs tomorrow, he stated firmly. And I'm selling the house, Grandpa Walter reaffirmed. The decisions are made. My mother's composure cracked entirely.
decades of carefully built control disintegrating. "You can't do this. You're manipulating the situation while we were away. No one needs us, not some facility with strangers. Daddy, you can't possibly manage your own affairs anymore." "Actually," I interjected calmly, "that's why he's granted me power of attorney and healthcare proxy." I removed the notarized documents from my bag, legally executed yesterday. "We'll contest this," my father threatened. "You've taken advantage of an elderly man's confusion." "I'm 76, not incapacitated," Grandpa retorted sharply. "My neurologist has documented my cognitive competence despite physical limitations. These decisions reflect my wishes, not Chloe's influence." My mother's strategy pivoted again, anger transforming to theatrical tears. "After everything we've done for this family," she sobbed, "this is how you repay us, turning against your own parents?" "You stole my savings," I reminded her evenly. "You neglected your father's basic needs. You enabled Noah's addiction until it nearly killed him. Those aren't accusations, they're documented facts." "We borrowed the money," my father insisted desperately. "We intended to repay it." "With what?" Grandpa challenged. "You've mortgaged your house twice, maxed out credit cards, and drained retirement accounts."
Where exactly would repayment come from? Their financial house of cards, built on borrowed money, delayed consequences, and wishful thinking, couldn't withstand direct examination. My parents exchanged panicked glances. The system they'd maintained through manipulation had finally collapsed. "What do you want?" my mother finally asked, calculations visible behind her tears. "To punish us? To take Noah and Grandpa away? To make us suffer?" "I want accountability," I answered honestly. "I want Noah to get actual help instead of enabling. I want Grandpa to receive proper care instead of neglect. I want my savings returned so I can pay my student loans." "We don't have the money," my father admitted reluctantly. "It's gone." "Then you'll create a repayment plan," I stated, "with interest documented legally." "Or what?" my mother challenged, desperation in her voice. "Or I'll file police reports for financial exploitation and elder neglect," I replied calmly. "The documentation exists, the witnesses exist, the choice is yours." The hospital room fell silent as decades of broken family dynamics reached an inevitable turning point. My parents, stripped of familiar evasions and manipulations, faced genuine consequences, perhaps for the first time in their adult lives. Noah broke the tense silence. "I need help," he said quietly. "Real help, not another cover-up or a temporary solution. I'm going to Hope Springs tomorrow with or without your support." His assertion, the first healthy boundary he'd established in years, visibly impacted my mother. Something shifted in her expression, calculation giving way to momentary clarity. "You nearly died," she whispered, perhaps truly seeing her son's condition for the first time. "Yes," he acknowledged simply, "and I will die if nothing changes." In that unguarded moment, maternal protectiveness finally aligned with reality rather than denial. My mother's carefully built story, perfect family, temporarily inconvenienced by minor challenges, couldn't survive confrontation with her son's near-death experience. "What do we do?" she asked, the question directed not at me, but at Noah. Perhaps the first time she genuinely sought his perspective rather than imposing her interpretation. "Let me get help," he answered, "real help, and start fixing what's broken, including with Chloe and Grandpa." My father, sensing shifting alliances, attempted to regain control. "We'll discuss options when everyone's calmer. For now, no more discussions." Grandpa interrupted firmly. "Decisions have been made. Noah enters treatment tomorrow. I'm selling the house and moving to assisted living. Chloe has legal authority to ensure these changes happen." His gaze fixed on my parents with unexpected steel. "Your only choice is whether you'll accept these changes gracefully or fight them fiercely." The ultimatum delivered by the family patriarch they'd systematically exploited carried authority they couldn't easily dismiss. My mother's resistant posture gradually softened into resignation. My father's blustering objections faded into uncomfortable silence.
Police Officer Johnson arrived, responding to the hospital's request for documentation of potential elder abuse. His presence transformed theoretical consequences into immediate reality, his official notebook recording statements that could potentially lead to criminal charges. "Will cooperate," my father finally conceded, self-preservation overriding resistance. "Whatever repayment plan you think is fair and Noah's treatment." I pressed, securing commitment while leverage existed. "If that's what he wants," my mother agreed reluctantly, glancing at her son with something approaching genuine concern. The confrontation hadn't produced magical transformation or tearful reconciliation. Those belonged to fiction, not family dysfunction's messy reality. But it had established boundaries, consequences, and initial steps toward accountability. Not healing yet, but preconditions for its possibility. As Officer Johnson completed his report and my parents retreated to process their diminished authority, Noah caught my gaze across the hospital room. "Thank you," he said simply, "for not giving up on me." "Never," I promised, the single word encompassing complicated truth. I hadn't enabled him like our parents, but neither had I abandoned him to their dysfunction. The middle path, loving accountability, offered our only chance for genuine healing. 3 days after finding Grandpa Walter alone with a sandwich, reading that cold note on the refrigerator, everything had changed. Not through magical intervention or a theatrical confrontation, but through steady commitment to necessary boundaries and consequences. The journey ahead remained long and uncertain. Noah's recovery would include setbacks alongside progress. My parents might revert to manipulation once immediate pressure faded. Grandpa's health would continue declining despite improved circumstances. But for the first time in our family's history, we faced reality together rather than enabling collective denial. The foundation, however fragile, had been established for something healthier to build upon. That night, as Grandpa Walter slept soundly in his hospital room and Noah prepared mentally for tomorrow's treatment admission, I finally allowed myself genuine rest. Not because problems were solved, but because appropriate boundaries meant I no longer carried everyone's burdens alone. Sometimes standing firm creates space for others to finally stand on their own. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest part of loving someone is not enabling destructive patterns. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more authentic conversations about family dynamics. Remember that healing is rarely linear, but with courage and boundaries, it's always possible. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I wish you strength in your own path toward healthy relationships.